What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So Jenn's journey on The Bachelorette is heading back to the States, to Seattle, for week 6 of The Bachelorette this season. We're coming down really to the second half of the season here, and still feel like any of these guys remaining could end up with Jenn. Besides one. Sorry, Sam. But not really. So let's just jump into the episode. But first, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down below if you do enjoy the video and want to see more Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise content going forward, and a bunch of other stuff on the channel. So diving right in, we get the teaser for the episode. We get Jenn coming in the room looking for Sam, and you can tell she is not happy. So we jump into everything that happens first. Everyone arrives in Seattle. Charity comes to give some advice to Jenn, dwindling down the group to 4 tonight, which means hometowns is next week. Jenn opens up that she feels like Sam is holding back and reminds her of some of her past boyfriends. Also, Jeremy and her laugh a lot and have a good time, but don't know if anything can come from it, emotionally, basically. Also feels like Marcus is holding back a little bit, which we did kind of get from some of their previous interactions. A package comes with a one-on-one date card. It's for Marcus. Inside the box is a Letterman jacket. Jesse shows up to the date there with Jenn and Marcus and is there to take them on a magical road to love in the Emerald City. Kelsey and Daisy show up and explain the date as they're heading down the yellow brick road. Obviously, this is for the movie Wicked, their little promo that we usually get on the season for whatever Disney or whatever project we get. This time it is for Wicked coming out this Thanksgiving. They have to make choices throughout going down the yellow brick road, like a sweet or spicy one, a slow or fast, and the slow or fast choice is what actually they finally get not stumped up on, but maybe disagree about. Marcus chooses slow, Jenn chooses fast. She says, I'm, fast, and she's like, you gotta keep up with me. She doesn't want to be the only one progressing here in this relationship. Charity is back again, says there's no place like home, or in this case, hometowns. Gives them a little needle that they have to pop these balloons and comes out with memorable moments for them. Marcus gets really emotional about his sister, as it was a picture from him and his sister from his basic training graduation. And there was also a video of him and his sister. Jenn gets a letter from her mom. Jenn's mom wrote how, she did her best to make sure Jenn didn't feel like she came from a broken family, given that her dad wasn't around. Then after they share a nice moment there, they keep on going down the yellow brick road, and Trista is waiting at the end to send them off on a nice air balloon ride to end that portion of the date. Back at the hotel, the group date card comes, and Jeremy's name isn't on it, so that means he's finally getting a one-on-one. At the dinner portion for Marcus and Jenn's date, he's struggling to open up still, which we've seen, throughout this season and, throughout this date as well. He does eventually open up and say that he doesn't come from a perfect family. His sister and him were both born in a rough situation, parents who really couldn't take care of them, unstable, not fit to be parents, dropped them off one day at daycare and never came back. He had to take on the role of looking after his sister, and they ended up in a foster home, and families would, in Marcus's words, try them out, and he said, none of the situations ever worked out. Let me tell you, I shed a tear or two listening to Marcus open up like this, because obviously everything about the situation, a sad situation, and it makes sense why it took so long for him to be comfortable to open up. But as Jenn reiterates about how strong it was of Marcus to open up like this to really anyone, let alone, not just Jenn, but, open up in front of cameras and in front of everyone like that, knowing everyone will know that story. And as he said, I'm pretty sure he said, like, some of his even, like, close friends don't even know, like, that whole story, that he just opened up about. So, I mean, hats off to Marcus for being so strong to share that, most importantly, with Jenn, and having to go through all that as well. Seems to have made him a really, really good person, and Marcus does end up getting the one-on-one date rose at the end of the night. Jesse tells them to look in the western sky, and fireworks go off. And vibes continue to be high with Marcus here. At the group date, Jason and Molly are there on the same radio show that when Jason was a Bachelor and Molly was on the show, on The Bachelor, they were on this radio show when they went to Seattle. Jenn acknowledges, although she is attracted to Sam and all these things, there is some red flags. And they play a word association game when the guys come in and get on the radio show. And whoop, Sam is not doing well. Sam gets the word fantasy suites and he says aggressive. And the looks on everyone in that room's faces was absolutely dumbfounded, just at a loss for words, kind of. So then we keep it moving. Sam, when asked to describe how he feels about Jenn, isn't really answering the question, just kind of talking in circles. Jenn doesn't know how authentic his answers were. They choose Sam as someone who they think needs more time with Jenn. In the one-on-one time, he is still doing the same thing. Kind of just talking in circles, not really answering questions. He actually said the words out of his mouth. She wasn't his type when he got out of the limo, and he thought the Bachelorette was Daisy or Maria. Why that would ever come out of your mouth when you are currently dating the person and you say, oh, I thought it was going to be this person or this person. Like, I don't know what goes through that guy's mind, but geez. Okay, so we move on. Sam describes Jenn as selfless. Jenn asks why she's selfless, and he can't really give any answers. Just kind of still says the same rehearsed stuff, it sounds like. Just sounds like he's, reading off of a teleprompter or something. And the guys are listening in the back like, I can answer this question right now with multiple examples. Jenn asks him about seeing a future at the end of this, and he's like, my love language is physical touch. And he just grabs her and starts making out with her. Like, cannot read a room, buddy. She's like, slow down, cowboy. Jenn says at the night portion, kind of the group portion before they go off into one-on-one convos, that one of the conversations earlier left her feeling not so great. Pretty obvious that it's about Sam. Grant has a nice conversation with her, saying he already chose her, and says that he is falling in love with her. Jonathan says how his feelings have skyrocketed. Spencer has a nice moment where Jenn says he's given her so much more than her previous relationships have. Devin's convo, Jenn said how he makes her feel seen, and Jenn actually expresses that she is falling in love with him as well after he expressed that last week. And now Jenn's conversation with Sam, she doesn't think he can back up the feelings that he says he has for her. Jenn says she feels that he didn't see or hear her today at all. It sounds like my guy needs a lozenge, though. Keeps clearing his throat, trying to come up with an answer to the question, and he can't answer the question of why her. Why is, he choosing her, or why is it her? He kind of takes a minute and says he loves her, because that just comes out of left field from nowhere that you just blurt out for whatever reason when you're grasping at straws, I guess. But there's no substance or logic to their same conversations that they're having, as Jenn says, and there's no group date rose. Jenn just wants to be 100% with where she's feeling. We jump ahead to Jeremy's one-on-one date. They go to the market with the fish flying around. Jeremy makes her a bouquet of flowers and just wants to make sure she's good after he heard briefly about her group date last night. They just go around trying different things, playing little games. They get their palms read, and things seem to be lining up for them with the things the palm reader is saying there. They toss and catch some fish. They dance in the street outside the market. There's a lot riding on this night portion, though, because as Jenn kind of said earlier, they're connecting in terms of, they laugh a lot, they have a good time together, but can they get there on that emotional level enough for her to want to bring him to a hometown date next week and go meet his family? We will see. So we go ahead to the night portion of the date, and Jenn says he brings out the most of her from anyone here. Jeremy opens up about how his Jewish beliefs and background. Jenn is Buddhist and tells Jeremy more about that for her. And it seems like they both meet eye to eye on the cultural and family part, which obviously is a big deal to a lot of people and seems like a big deal to both of them. Jenn gives Jeremy the rose at the end of the date. And this is something that Jeremy has kind of flown under the radar because we haven't really seen a lot of screen time with him throughout the season, but I am happy for him getting to hometowns. And the only knock I can say about Jeremy is he kind of looks like Jen, but thankfully and hopefully it seems like he's a much better human than Jed was back on Hannah Brown's season. So it's rose ceremony day time, and Jenn doesn't want to wait. She wants to have this conversation with Sam, see where they're at before making her final decision going into this rose ceremony. She's walking around the hotel trying to find Sam where he's at, asking the other guys, and finally finds him going through multiple rooms. Sam apologized for how the date went, and Jenn thinks he's going to say, like, I shouldn't have blurted out I loved you after giving no context to it at all, but he doesn't. He said he did mean to say that he loves her. He's saying all the right things, Jenn says, but it's hard for her to believe him. Jenn asks, what do you see in me? And he says there's people out there with similar characteristics as her, and just the word vomit that he just keeps saying to Jenn is just insane. Just fishing for anything. And after some more and more word vomit from Sam, Jenn just needs a second, steps out. Jenn comes back and says there's just a disconnect here, and as much as she wants this to work, and it's just not going to work. He's like, you didn't hear anything I said. And Jenn just says, no, like, you remind me of a relationship that I've already put in the past. Like, we're good. She gives him a hug and walks out. And then as he's, kind of walking out and in his confessional, he says the energy she brought was very dull, and he's going to keep the main thing. And thank the Lord that we do not have to hear that anymore from Buddy. We can just keep the main thing of not having to hear that anymore this season. So let's move into the rose ceremony. Who's getting the last 2 roses? We already have Jeremy and we already have Marcus with 2 hometown dates secured with their 2 roses. The next 2 roses, the last 2 roses to go into that hometown date is Devin and Jonathan. So that means Spencer and Grant go home. She walks Grant out, but not Spencer. Why? We see Spencer getting a call to his mom right away, and it's kind of like there was, kind of rumors, and we saw from some of the, people that work on the show on Twitter, and it was kind of rumored that we were getting the Bachelor reveal tonight, and then so it's like, oh, is it about to be Spencer? Is that why we're kind of getting this, like, oh, he gets his phone right away, he calls his mom, and then it's like, hey, Spencer's actually the next Bachelor, and then we don't see anything right there. We jump into next week's hometown preview, and it looks like it'll be an emotional one as always, and an emotional rose ceremony. I believe Marcus said something along the lines of, going into this rose ceremony, Jenn deserves someone who's going to be all there with her. So that'll be interesting. I think he continues to move on after hometowns, but something to keep an eye on going into next week. But then the episode ends and we still don't hear anything about who the Bachelor is. So I scroll over Twitter and it's just randomly on there on the Bachelor Nation account that Grant is going to be the next Bachelor. So don't know why, if they were going to be announcing that, they didn't have some type of commercial or anything on after the show. I know a majority of the people who watch the show are on Twitter, and we'll see this anyway, but just found that kind of weird. I know they'll probably do something at the Men Tell All and, the AFR and all that, but just found that a little weird how that was probably, I don't remember the last time a lead for Bachelor or Bachelorette just got announced on Twitter after a week 6 show. Just kind of weird. I really like Grant. I think Grant's going to be a good Bachelor. I think, I liked him from everything we saw him on the season. We didn't see a lot of him on the season. He got the late one-on-one date, and I thought it went well. I thought there was a good shot that he was going on to hometowns next week, but I'm excited. I think he'll be a good Bachelor, and hopefully we get a little bit more one-on-one time with him at the Men Tell All and AFR before we move into his season. Assuming probably coming in January. But honestly, really speaking on the Final Four, really a pretty surprising Final Four, at least in my eyes. Not taking anything away from these men, but I mean, my preseason picks, going in, I was 1 for 4 in who I had going to hometowns. The only person that is actually going to hometowns that I had was Jonathan. I had him as the runner-up on this season, actually. But for me, I had Dylan, John, and Spencer, who are no longer there, in that Final Four as well. Right now, I do feel like Marcus and Devin are the furthest along with Jenn, but I don't know. I'm not ready to say for sure that it's not Jeremy or Jonathan. I think Jeremy actually made a lot of strides tonight. They connected on a lot of levels, and, things just kind of seemed to line up for them. And, speaking about their future, it seems like a lot of their values and what they want in a relationship, in a marriage, in a family, all seem to line up for them going forward. So I think I wouldn't sleep on Jeremy either, and I wouldn't sleep on Jonathan either. They've had some nice moments. Again, just that we haven't really seen a lot. We saw a lot of Jonathan night 1 with when he came in all bandaged up, but we haven't seen a lot really since then. But, kind of some of my thinking to this too, I'm, going off of, I have no spoilers. I don't know how the final four plays out, who she ends up with, I don't know any of that. But I did watch an interview earlier on Monday with Jesse on Ryan Fields Playing the Field, the Bachelor podcast here on YouTube. And Jesse said the ending was completely different than he would have predicted, even in New Zealand. So we've heard that, something happens or Jenn does something something happens that never's been happened before. And, I think that I have my kind of predictions, and I know my predictions are probably similar to a lot of people's out there. What it could be, will that actually be what it is? I don't know. But I think the way that Jesse says that is, he worded it in terms of, if you would have asked him in New Zealand who he thought, the group that was going to be there at the end was going to be, he would have gave the group, and he said the group that was there was like at the end was completely different, and it played out completely different than he thought. And he's like, usually you shoot all these hours and hours of, footage, and then, obviously the editors, they, know everything that's going to happen, and then they, create a story that makes sense for all of us at home just watching. And he said, so I thought we were going to go this, like he thought XYZ was going to happen, and, A, B, Y happened, like he said that he was completely shocked, and he's like, I'm usually pretty dialed in on these things, and, have a pretty good eye and, guessing for these things. But so that's what I'm kind of going off of here, why I'm like, I'm not writing off Jeremy or Jonathan, because, like I said, as of right now, it does feel like Marcus and Devin are maybe a little bit further along with her on the screen. But we have seen some stuff. Obviously, we've seen Devin in some drama through the season. The drama was with Sam, and it seems like Sam would get in drama with anyone in the house that wasn't exactly on his side or thought the exact same as him. So not really writing on that, but is that something? And then Marcus, we've seen him, maybe struggling a little bit to open up. So is that something going forward that it could be Jeremy or Jonathan, who we maybe haven't seen a lot of on-air screen time with? I think one of them, that's a real possibility, could end up with Jenn at the end of this. So I think we're really in for some surprises here, starting with hometowns next week. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.